Have you ever had that feeling? That prickly sensation on the back of your neck that says someone is watching you, even when you're completely alone in a room? Or maybe you've caught a fleeting movement out of the corner of your eye. It's a dark shape that vanishes the instant you turn your head to look. Tonight's story isn't about the typical ghosts that haunt old houses. It's about something deeper, something far more personal. It's about a shadow that shouldn't exist, a true story from a child who grew up but never ever forgot what he saw. It's a tale that will make you question the very nature of what you see in the dark and what might be staring back from within your own mind. This is the story of a shadow that lived in the corners of childhood fear, waiting for the lights to go out. Our story begins with a boy. Let's call him Leo. He was 9 years old, living with his family in an old house, the kind with creaky floorboards and long, dark hallways that seemed to stretch on forever at night. It was an ordinary house in every other way, filled with the usual sounds of family life. But one night, something extraordinary happened. Leo was woken from a deep sleep by a faint, shuffling sound coming from the hallway just outside his bedroom, thinking it was his mom checking on him or his dad getting a late-night glass of water. He wasn't scared at first, just curious. He quietly slipped out of bed, his small feet cold on the wooden floor, and crept towards his bedroom door, which was always left slightly ajar. He peeked through the narrow gap, his eyes adjusting to the dim moonlight filtering through the hallway window, and that's when he saw it. Standing perfectly still in the middle of the corridor was a shadow. But this wasn't the kind of shadow cast by a coat rack or a piece of furniture. It was the shadow of a person. More specifically, it was the shadow of a boy, about his height, with his same slender build. It was an exact silhouette of himself. But there was nothing there to cast it. The shadow was just there. A solid, two-dimensional figure of pure blackness, completely motionless. A cold dread washed over him. He felt his heart start to pound against his ribs like a trapped bird. The shadow didn't move. It didn't breathe. It just stood there, a silent, dark copy of him in the empty hallway. Leo wanted to scream, to call out for his parents, but his throat felt tight, and no sound would come out. It was like his voice was trapped deep in his chest. Panic seized him. He stumbled back from the door, his breath coming in short, sharp gasps. He scrambled back into his bed, yanking the thick comforter up and over his head, creating a small, dark tent. He squeezed his eyes shut, praying for morning to come, listening for any sound over the frantic beating of his own heart. He stayed like that for what felt like an eternity, until the first rays of dawn finally streaked through his window, chasing away the darkness. The next morning, at the breakfast table, he tried to explain what he'd seen to his mother. He described the shadow, how it looked just like him, how it just stood there. His mother, trying to be comforting, smiled gently and ruffled his hair. "Honey," she said, "it was probably just a bad dream. Or maybe your imagination was playing tricks on you in the dark." He wanted to believe her. He really did. But the image of that silent figure was burned into his mind. He knew it wasn't a dream. That night, he went to bed with a knot of fear in his stomach. He tried to keep his eyes open, staring at the ceiling, but eventually, exhaustion took over and he drifted off. He woke up later, not to a sound, but to a feeling. The feeling of being watched. Slowly opened his eyes, afraid of what he might see, and the fear was justified. The shadow was back, but this time it wasn't in the hallway. It was in his room, standing right at the edge of his bed, looming over him. It was closer, darker, and more terrifying than before. Night after night, the terrifying ritual continued. The shadow would appear, each time a little closer, a little more defined. Leo started to notice a strange and disturbing pattern. The more he panicked, the more he allowed the fear to consume him, the more solid and menacing the shadow became. On nights when he was paralyzed with terror, it would seem to lean in, as if studying him. He tried everything. He tried sleeping with the lights on, but the shadow would just appear in the corner of the room where the light was dimmest. He tried telling his dad, who checked the room for strange light sources and declared it was probably just shadows from the trees outside. But Leo knew it wasn't. One night, filled with a strange sense of defiance, Leo decided to try a different tactic. He would ignore it. When he woke and saw the shadow standing by his closet, he squeezed his eyes shut and focused on his breathing, pretending it wasn't there. He tried to think of happy things, of playing with his friends, of summer vacation, and then he heard it. Not with his ears, but inside his head. A clear, cold whisper that wasn't his own thought. The voice said, "I am you." When you're afraid, a jolt of pure terror, colder than any he'd felt before, shot through him. Was he going crazy? Was this voice real, or was his own mind turning against him? The line between reality and this waking nightmare was blurring, and he was terrified of what would happen if it disappeared completely. The shadow wasn't just a silent observer anymore. It had a voice, and it claimed to be a part of him. Years went by. Leo grew up. His family eventually moved to a new house in a different city, and to his immense relief, the shadow didn't follow. The nightly visitations stopped, but the memory didn't fade. It was a scar on his psyche, a dark chapter he kept locked away. He became an adult, built a life, but the anxiety from his childhood lingered, a quiet hum beneath the surface of his daily routine. He often found himself glancing at dark corners or feeling a familiar unease when he was alone at night. Finally, he decided to talk about it, not just as a spooky story, but as a real and traumatic part of his past. During a therapy session, he recounted the entire story to his psychologist, expecting skepticism or a simple explanation of night terrors, but the psychologist listened intently. After Leo finished, the therapist leaned forward and said something that sent a chill down his spine. "The mind is a powerful thing," he began. "It can certainly create vivid images and experiences born from intense fear, especially in childhood. We often call these hypnagogic hallucinations." But he paused. "When these experiences are so consistent, so specific, and evolve over time as yours did, can sometimes be more than just imagination." The psychologist explained the concept of a shadow self, a term coined by psychiatrist Carl Jung. It represents the parts of ourselves we suppress: our fears, our insecurities, our darker impulses. Could it be that the shadow Leo saw was a literal manifestation of his own childhood anxiety? A physical form given to his fear, which grew stronger the more he fed it with his terror. Was that voice he heard his own subconscious speaking to him? Was it something else entirely? Something that found a young, frightened boy and latched onto his fear? The question remains, and it's one that Leo still asks himself. So, what do you think? Was the shadow a psychological projection, a real-life embodiment of the boy's deepest anxieties? Or was it an external entity, a paranormal being drawn to the potent energy of a child's fear? Many ancient cultures have stories of shadow people or doppelgangers that are seen as omens or malevolent spirits. Science, on the other hand, offers explanations rooted in neurology and psychology, from sleep paralysis to complex hallucinations. But for the boy who lived it, the distinction is blurry. The terror was real. The voice in his head was real to him. It shaped his perception of the world, and the memory of that silent, dark twin has stayed with him his entire life. It makes you wonder about the shadows in your own life, the fears you keep hidden in the dark. What shape would they take if they could step out into the light? Thank you for joining me for this journey into the shadows. I hope this story stayed with you. If you enjoy exploring the strange and the unexplained, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell so you do unmiss our next story. And I really want to know your thoughts, so head down to the comments and tell me. Have you ever seen a shadow that you couldn't explain? A shadow that wasn't yours? Share your story with us. Until next time, sleep well, okay? And maybe leave a light on. See you in the next story, okay? and the next night